Welcome back to the review and another edition of Steampunk Month, celebrating the unique pop culture movement combining modern influences and the more iconic pieces of the Industrial Revolution into one style. And primarily now, this is related to industrial England, but as I hope to show in this continuing series, this is not the limit, and really people have gone a lot further than this in terms of influence. Now, I have to apologize in advance because this is not the review I was planning to give this week. Turns out when you listen to an artist a lot, you sort of have to think harder than you originally thought about what to say in a recommendation that is both helpful and not too much of a fanboy. So you're going to get that next week. But for now, not to fear. I have two more bands to show you today, and I thought we'd go on the darker side of steampunk with some more, not grotesque, but certainly darker themed steampunk bands. And so journey with me, if you will, to the wrong side of the tracks with the music of Abney Park and This Way to the Egress. Now, Abney Park didn't start out as a steampunk band, but in their time that they've sort of honed their style, they've come to what I think of as possibly one of the best examples of one of the purer kind of steampunk experiences that you could have. They started actually as an industrial goth band in 1997, but in 2005 decided to reforge themselves into a steampunk experience, including coming up with fictional backstories, individual characters, and an entire mythos of just why they reforged themselves and the different characters. It was very, very thorough. And I'll get actually a bit to more explaining how that influences my recommendation a little bit later. But the thing musically, why I call them the quintessential steampunk, or some have described them as the quintessential steampunk band, is that they have a very unique blend. Not only do they have sort of the industrial feel of, the heavy bass lines and the vocals are very dark and gravelly, but they have a very interesting method of mixing in samples of New Orleans-y style jazz, which gives the entire thing a really authentic review. And note how I didn't, and of course this is getting away from England and everything, but in the end that doesn't really matter. And the integrity of the music stands on its own, especially since they seem to fringe members and add members on regular occasion. It's quite the accomplishment that they keep this very similar style, and it continues being a continuous story, because not only does this backstory sort of fuel the music that they make. A lot of their tracks refer back to this backstory, but they have other media that's been created surrounding their backstory. There's been an RPG called The End of Days, as well as a novel called The Wrath of Fate, Book 1 of the Airship Pirate Chronicles. For as the legend goes, the band crash landed near a wrecked pirate ship and boarded it and sort of recrafted it and decided to become um, airship pirates themselves. And so salute to any of you cosplayers who go on that whole facet of the steampunk adventure. And and there's really that's it for what they are. They are very, very good. And if there's any complaint I have, of course it's very mild given that they're a very much environmental band. So they're all about creating and honing this entire environment, which they're so successful with. But sometimes their vocals can get little bit hard to understand because of the gravelly style. But small beans. They're still what many people think of when they think of music and steampunk. This way to Egress, however, or Egress, I should say, sorry for the pronunciation, departs from this more serious side of things, though. If I can indulge myself a little bit and add a musical reference, they're really akin to the Thénardiers of Les Miserables. Dirty, despicable, yet you want to invite them to parties because number one, they're great storytellers. I mean, their tales of killers and mass murderers are really fun to listen to in a way that you don't normally expect. And number two, they're so bouncy about it. They don't do the thing that Park does. Instead, they really focus on more naturalistic environments. They boast a number of influences going from Balkan style to ragtime to punk rock. Their instrumentation features everything from accordions to a full brass section and piano, and electric guitar and banjo. I mean, it's really a rustic sound that adds authentic nature to it. I think it's best described actually on their own website when they have a quote from Bonnie and Clyde saying, "This is good road trip music." It really does sound like that Scandal music that would be produced by a corner band. And while it isn't for everyone, there's certainly some more adult themes. There's gore, and so if that's not your thing, maybe wait till next week. I can suggest to you some better bands for you crowd. But for the rest of us, it's just delicious, sinful, fun. And really, if you indulge in them long enough, I think you'll find that you'll really come to enjoy them. And on top of everything else, they actually announced recently that they're working on a third album. So on top of the other two albums that they have, you will find, that there's more material going to come out, so you can share in that experience of other fans as we consume something new as well. So there's always that, and that's I think going to be a great album given their other two works. So, in conclusion, if you're looking for a bit more serious but a bit more tonal band, Abney Park is perfect for you. Complete with a backstory, RPG, and novel if you really want to get into it. And if you really want sort of the gypsy or the rascal experience, This Way to Egress makes a perfect ballad band that sounds rustic and has just deliciously bad lyrics to get into. Um, as always, this has been the Stroll Review with the second artist highlight in Steampunk Month, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't, check out the first video in the series. I'll link it below, as well as the official sites, the Amazon store page, and the iTunes store page for each band featured in this episode. And as always, subscribe and like this video. The more we do that, the more that I can grow this channel, hopefully get enough to get better equipment. So far I'm using a really dinky webcam that I'm sure is dirty, and a microphone here. So share it with your friends who also might be interested in listening to some steamy music. Thank you once again for listening, and as always, keep your ear open to good music.